YouTube. What is up, James? MTG Biggie here, and today I'm just making a quick update video. I know some of you guys were interested in the PPTQ that I was playing in, that I talked about last video, so we're going to talk about how that went, as well as some stuff going on with the Pro Tour. As of right now, it's just after midnight Eastern Standard Time here in the United States, and the Pro Tour wrapped up its day one. It's in Bilbao, Spain, and so we didn't really get to watch it here for the most part because it started at like 4 a.m. our time, so I caught a little bit of the tail end. So I'm going to briefly glance over what I did see and go over that, and then a couple other random things, whatever comes to mind. However, before I get into it, I want to get a little bit serious here on the channel. It's not something that I do often, and it's not something that, luckily, I have to do often, but those who are unaware, in the Magic the Gathering community, there's a pretty well-known player who's very popular on the Star City Games Open Series line of tournaments, who also had participated in some Pro Tours. I believe he had a top 8 and a GP, and created content for various websites and was a streamer, if I'm not mistaken. I'm familiar with him mostly from the Star City tour and watching him play on camera, as he was sort of a staple on that tournament scene and kind of a decently big part of that tournament scene, and kind of one of the personalities that Star City really sort of got behind and supported on those tournaments, on Twitch streams of those tournaments. And there's a very young dude, I believe 25, if I'm not mistaken. And his name is Corey McDuffie, and he passed away. I've never met the dude. I only knew him from seeing him on stream and on Twitter and online and stuff like that. I'd never met him or really corresponded with him personally, so I can't speak to his character. All I can speak to is the fact that we lost a Magic player. That sucks. That's always sad. It's always with great regret that you have to hear about these things, regardless of whether or not you knew them personally or you ever met the person. The fact that we share something in common with this person that we could have met at any time at a tournament down the line or whatever, and we would instantly have a connection through this game. And when any of us passes away or are lost, it's a huge bummer. It's not good for anybody. You get to see a lot of reaction on Twitter from other pro players, and also Rich Hagon on the Pro Tour broadcast did about a good minute and a half, 2-minute segment, not really segment, but just a quick little remembrance send-off for the dude. It's sad. People struggle with all sorts of different things in their lives outside of Magic, and I'm not saying for sure that he was struggling with something, but for a dude his age to go out so very young and too early in his life, it's a bummer. So condolences to his family and his friends and the Magic community around him, who are going to miss him greatly. And it's unfortunate, but I think watching the way that the community and the other pro players and even the Pro Tour coverage kind of rallied around putting out kind words toward him and his family and stuff like that is really, really refreshing and nice to see. There's a lot of drama that gets churned up in the Magic community, and recently there's been a lot of negativity churned up over the past few months, and at the end of the day, it's nice to remember that this is a community, and this is a bunch of like-minded people that come together to play a game that we all love, and that when one of us goes away suddenly, unexpectedly, that the rest of us kind of can rally around that person and their memory and mourn a loss, regardless of whether or not you knew the guy or not. it's good to see that people care enough. It speaks volumes for the community, I think more so than any stupid drama ever could. And it's a good look for the community that Corey McDuffie's memory will be carried on positively by those who he did meet and touch and knew in real life as well as in the game tangentially. So, that being said, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Clearly, dude will be missed, and it's unfortunate that I have to talk about it, but hopefully his family and friends and everybody get to not only mourn the loss, but celebrate the life of the dude who seemed like nothing but a decent person. So that's that. I just wanted to get that out of the way up front. Sorry if that went on too long or started this thing out as a bummer, but I'll talk about Magic. That's what people come here to this channel for, and talk about the game specifically. So moving on, those who didn't catch the last video, it was a video about the deck that I was playing at the PPTQ that I just attended last weekend, last Sunday, and the turnout for that PPTQ was pretty small. It was like 16 to 17 people, and there was 5 rounds that cut to a top 4 as opposed to a top 8, because I guess there was a change in Wizards tournament policy for that. So we cut to a top 4, which I did not make the cutoff. Being that it was such a small tournament and the cut was so slim, the record that you had to maintain is you basically have 1 loss to give. Beyond that, you're pretty much mathematically out of it. So I'll go through it. Those who don't know, I'll put a card up in the top somewhere over here or over there or somewhere, probably right above my head actually. You could click the last video that goes over my deck and is me talking about my deck and my sideboarding and stuff like that going into the tournament. Now I'm going to talk about it after the tournament. So round 1, of course, those who didn't know, I'm playing blue-white cycling, which is basically blue-white control plus Drakehaven as a win condition. But round 1, I played against a red and black aggro deck. It was basically mono red with a light black splash, and I stumbled a lot on lands both games and got steamrolled. So it was a bad start. I started out 0-1, unable to give up another loss for the rest of the tournament. So that's how that started out. Round 2, I got paired against a good friend of mine, my buddy Nick Baker, who was on green-black Constrictor. And game 1, he kind of rolled me over pretty quickly. And then games 2 and 3, I kind of just crushed him very slowly. The matchup felt really, really highly in my favor. He just didn't have a real way to deal with what I was doing. It was like we were playing totally different games. We were on different axes for what our game plans were, and it seemed that my game plan had a really good effect playing against his game plan. So I was able to win. Much to his dismay, it was like torture for him, he seemed, because I did a lot of stuff. I drew a lot of cards, and it was a kind of a beatdown for on my end. Not that I was being playing aggressively, but it was a slow, I'm sure obnoxious from the other side of the table beating. So sorry, Nick. Love you, buddy. But next time, whatever, I'm sure you'll get me. Then the third round, I played against another friend of mine who was on Esper Gift, Godpharaoh's Gift. And that was the matchup I was most worried about and I most wanted to avoid going into the tournament. And because I made the changes to my sideboard that I did, I won the match. Game 1, I lost in pretty typical fashion. I didn't do a lot, and my opponent did do a lot, and there wasn't much I could do, and just Angel of Sanctions, one after the other, got there, and my win condition just didn't line up game 1 with being able to handle what my opponent was doing. However, I got to make the sideboard changes I made going into the tournament, knowing that it's a bad matchup, And it completely 100% worked and swung the matchup what I feel was in my favor quite a bit. So what I did was I boarded in Azor. Those who don't know, here we'll look up Azor real quick. Doing this on the fly, I didn't have anything really prepared. But those who don't know, Azor is a total house in the control mirror in standard. So I boarded this guy in. It's a 6/6 for 6 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, your opponent can't cast instants or sorceries during their next turn, and when it attacks, you get to just Sphinx's Revelation. So I boarded this guy in, and I boarded in Sentinel Totems, Graveyard Hate for that deck, and also I upped my number of negates of counter magic. I boarded in a couple negates as well as a Forsake the Worldly. So I had Artifact Hate, I had Graveyard Hate, I had more counter magic, and I had a new win condition boarded in after sideboarding. So game 2, I not only got to stick a Sentinel Totem, but I got to play Azor on like turn probably 7 or 8, and eventually the card advantage that I got to accrue after not only cycling through my deck with all my main deck shell with the cycling cards and the card drawing and all that I already have built in my deck, I got to start Sphinx's revving. I revved 3 times off of attacks from this and just buried my opponent under the amount of cards that I had. By the end of the game, I had a full hand, and the last attack, or the last couple attacks I made with this, I didn't even rev because I didn't want to discard cards. Like, my hand was perfect the way it was, and I knew that my opponent would not be resolving any more spells for the rest of the game, and I just got to get there really quickly. In game 3, I had to mulligan down to 5, I believe, but I kept a reasonable hand with a couple lands, a couple cycling spells, and the Sentinel Totem, and I drew, my first draw was Azor, but I drew like running lands, so I got to cast Azor on 6, and we were running down on the clock. Time was running down, so I knew that I had to close the game quickly. So the first moment I casted Azor, it resolved, and I was able to just aggressively attack. My opponent had a couple chump blockers here and there, and then once he ran out of the flying chump blockers that he was able to produce, I was able just to turn the corner and win the game in turns, which was nice. It was nice to get there, because in the control mirror, it's always really bad when you have to take that draw, especially like if you know you have the advantage. It's nice to have something like this that could just shut the game down quickly. And this felt a lot like playing with Ojutai, Dragonlord Ojutai back in the day, in like Esper Dragons or Jeskai or whatever. Whereas like if this card lands and you get in with it once, the game's basically over. They just don't know it yet. So that was super sweet. I got to do that, and it felt really good. I feel like this is going to be one of the sideboard win conditions in grindy games, in control mirrors, and I really look forward to continuing playing this over the span of this standard. My opponent being on Esper, Godfarrow's Gift, thinking that I was just on the Drakehaven plan, boarded out his Ravenous Chupacabras, so I didn't have to worry about those, and luckily I was able just to get the job done with Azor. Then, the 4th round, I got paired against my buddy Dave, and he was playing the blue-white, I guess, Boggles/Heroic sort of deck, and I just never drew anything worthwhile, and my hands were never great. I probably could have more aggressively mulliganed. I ended up mulliganing both games and just never getting there, and I got really steamrolled. So I went 2-2, and I dropped. However, I felt my deck was good. I didn't have any problem with it. I played mostly Type Magic. In round 1, there was one punt that I made that I don't think cost me a game, because I think I was going to lose that game anyway. It just cost me the ability to maybe potentially pull ahead later on. Like, I think it was, like, the one thing that I did that could have maybe turned the game around down the line a few turns. But I missed the line, and I got steamrolled, and I don't think I was going to win that game anyway, but I really, like, eliminated my chances to do so with that play. But the rest of the tournament, I think I played fine. I just got dealt some poor hands, and there were just... the issue I had with stumbling on land drops and stuff, getting rolled by aggro decks is what happened. So... that's all I could do. 2-2. I dropped just because at 2-2, mathematically, there was like very slim chance that if I win the 5th round, I can somehow sneak in the top 4. And it actually turned out that 3-2 record was able to get into the top 4 because so many people dropped. So maybe that's my lesson learned, not to drop that early. Or if there's just one round left, play it out, I guess. But we went 2-2, we dropped, and didn't quite get there. But it was fun playing Standard. The new format, I think, after the bans seems decent. Rivals of Ixalan seems good. And it seemed like a lot of fun. I enjoy the format. And I actually feel better about playing more Standard going forward. So that was that. I also got to play some Modern the other day to also a 2-2 finish. I started strong at 2-0 and then fell to 0-2. My last round in that tournament, I played against Elves. I actually played against Affinity, then Elves, which are notoriously fairly bad matchups for Death and Taxes. And with Elves, I had to mulligan to 2 games in a row, which was pretty gross. But it is what it is. It happens. It's variance. That happens in Magic. It's fine. But yeah, the Pro Tour Day 1 had wrapped up as I got into work today, or early the day when I was in work today. So I didn't get to watch a lot of it because their time zone's so different from ours in Spain, where like by the time it starts it's like 4 a.m. here. But I did get to catch a couple matches and got to watch some Magic. And Modern's a great format, and that just proves it. Humans feels like far and away the best, most impressive deck in the format. I don't know if that's correct, but it seems that way. Humans just seems disgustingly consistent and disgustingly good, and clearly there are some decks that it can fold to quickly, and some cards that like take advantage of it. I think Blood Moon is a huge weakness for that deck, but a turn 3 Blood Moon, like when your opponent goes turn 2 and turn 3 Mantis Riders, turn 3 Blood Moon doesn't matter when you're on the play with humans. So while that is one answer to that deck, perhaps it may not be the answer to that deck, but deck seems really gross, really sweet. I like the deck quite a bit. It was really cool seeing Thalia on camera and crushing it. There was a match where I'm not entirely sure the 2 players. I know one was Lucas Esper Berthold, or I'm probably killing that name right now. But he was on humans, his opponent was on burn, and his opponent kept both hands, both games, 1-landers, and didn't find his second land, and the dude playing humans just slammed Thalia quickly. And that was the game. As soon as Thalia hit the table, when you have 1 land and a handful of burn spells that you can't cast, like, you don't win that match. Thalia was a beating, and I like the fact that that card got to see really good play on camera at the biggest, one of the pinnacle events of the year at a Pro Tour. Is people got to see the real raw power of Thalia in Modern, and that's pretty sweet. I play a different Thalia deck, but it was cool seeing that deck really succeed and do well, because Thalia is one of my favorite Magic cards, and I really, really enjoy seeing it do well. So that was that. As far as the channel goes, things are going well. We made a lot of headway. We're at 423 subs. We're chugging along, moving along. We have now about 17 days left to make 1,000 and get a bunch more view time, which I don't think we're going to get there yet. But I'm confident that hopefully before the end of the calendar year, from when I have started to when we get there, I'll be able to get to the 1,000 subs and the full amount of watch time needed. And then we can definitely get back our monetization. That's the goal. I've been discussing things a lot with other YouTube creators that are similarly sized. Now that I have a Twitter, which right now I'll stop and remind everybody, I started an official Twitter account for the channel. So that's a great way to get a hold of me. It's at MTGBiggie on Twitter, just the same as it is here on YouTube. And if you have any questions or want to correspond with me, other creators, hit me up there. I want to try to start collaborating with some of you guys and to try to grow all of us all at once and try to raise all of ourselves together and get everybody back where they want to be on YouTube and whatnot. But anyway, yeah, on Twitter, I've been conversing on and off with some other creators from all over the world and from various different walks of life and from various different levels of subscribers, all the way down to like very, very new channels that have been at it less than a year, like myself, and all the way up to like guys and girls who are in the thousands and so of subscribers or whatever. It's really nice to watch the community kind of come together because we all are facing this YouTube nonsense. So that was really neat to kind of start conversing with folks on Twitter more. I look forward to using that platform to expand this channel as much as possible and to help promote the small YouTubers out there who are really doing a lot of great work in the community and who are really bringing their A game to it. Shout out to MTG Control. That dude has been very, very cool. He's a longtime subscriber of this channel. I didn't realize he had a channel until he mentioned it. So I went over there and subbed, and I've watched a good handful of his videos since then. And he's shouted me out a couple times. And that dude is just an example of a guy that's putting work in on YouTube and trying to cultivate something worthwhile. And so he's really doing it over there. So if you haven't, go check that dude out. I'll link it at the end of the video. Go check his channel out. Good dude. Also, Breakfast with Nerds. Again, I've corresponded with them. It's been a little while since we've spoke. But we had a little back and forth in a couple videos and stuff like that. Good dude. I mean, the rest of you guys on Twitter, there's actually, I found out about a gentleman who holds a Magic Gathering podcast who lives locally here near me, so I'm going to discuss with him some stuff, maybe try to work with him a little bit on collaborating. It's just a matter of working together to grow the community for all of us. But shout out to everybody. If you haven't yet, go subscribe to some small channels. Go watch some good content. It's off the beaten path a little bit harder to find or get to, but it's absolutely worth it. And if you're into Magic Gathering on YouTube, it's really nice to have variety, and there's something for everybody out there. MTG Control is a dude that plays just control decks for the most part. So while he's carved himself into a little bit of a narrower niche than a lot of us, he's doing a good job at it. So it's worthwhile if you're into control decks, if you're into watching people play control and talk about control, and you like countering spells. That's the dude to talk to. Breakfast with Nerds, again, like I mentioned before, they're really doing a lot of work toward new players. They talk more about story than I do on my channel, because I don't talk about the story too much, because I don't, I have very small knowledge of the actual Magic Gathering story, other than, the Cliff Notes version. But they put out a video that was behind the scenes of them making a podcast, and then they put out the podcast about the current story with Rivals of Ixalan and all that. So it's just really, really, like, really priceless content coming out from a lot of these folks. But yeah, channel's been going great either way. You guys have been super active in the comments, I think more so than ever. So shout out to everybody that's commenting on my last handful of videos. Also, I've noticed the handful of commenters that started out in this channel that have been here from the very beginning or close to the very beginning that have been missing lately. So those of you who used to comment or have been around the channel before, I miss you guys too. There's some new folks along the way. Get talking to everybody. Definitely check it out. Kabuki Kid comes to mind. She's been a very early supporter, somebody who I've had a nice time conversing with on and off on my videos and stuff, and various other names. And if I spent time name dropping everybody, it would take another half hour. So thank you guys. I appreciate all of that. And that's pretty much all I have for this week. I'm looking forward to going to another PPTQ here soon. I think on the 11th is what I'm going to aim for. So I'm going to try to run it back, make the couple adjustments I need to make, and try to get there. I really, really would like to qualify for a RPTQ to try to qualify for the Team Pro Tour. That's the goal. I know it's a long shot. The PPTQ grind is very hard, and some people do it for years before they get anywhere with it. But I look forward to it. Also, I'm trying to coordinate with some friends of mine, getting teams together and going to the Atlanta Star City Open, which is a team event. So if any of you guys are planning to go to that event, anybody that watches the channel will be in Atlanta at the end of April. For the Star City Games team event, let me know. Stop by and say what's up. I will definitely love chatting with some of you guys between rounds and stuff like that. I've got to coordinate my teams personally. I think we're trying to get a total of 3 teams together to travel together and probably test together and get things together so we can be better prepared and try to do some good at that tournament. Either way, guys, that's all I've got. I'm going to cut it off here before I get too rambly and too long-winded. And I look forward to hearing from all of you guys. And between now and the 20th, there is the video announcement from the contest that I put up where I'm going to give away a bunch of stuff if we could hit 1,000 subs and keep our monetization. It's a long shot, but we can get there maybe. So if you haven't, go check that video out. I'll link that below too. And that's it. I'll talk to you guys again very soon, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you.